Okay, so welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to look at how to survive economic hardship. Economic hardship is everywhere. It is not prone to a particular region or race because anywhere you go, you see that everything is on a steady rise. So, I want to talk about um, ways to survive economic hardship. Even if you are not going through any economic hardship, you can still use this to at least have enough resources that will help you in times, or let's say in stormy times when things are difficult. So these are very practical ways that has been working a lot for me. So I decide to share these useful tips. The first one is savings. Savings. Savings is very, very important. Very, very important. No matter the income you get every month, every week, every day, you just have to make up your mind to save, even if it's just a little fraction from your income. Now, when we talk about savings, saving in this context is the act of keeping or reserving money or other resources for future use or stormy days. Sometimes it seems very impossible to save, especially if our income is limited. We might feel like, what are we to save and what should we use, especially when it is very limited. But it is very, very, very possible. It's very possible, it's achievable, no matter the income you are getting. If it means taking a fraction out of it every week, every month, or every day, you just have to do it. Because these savings can always help you. It's more like a backup. And then savings can be done by everyone, whether you are rich, poor, average, whatever. And these savings are for future purposes. Remember, even those who are rich, those who are in business, they'll be out of business if they don't save. So out of every salary, income you are getting per week, per month, it depends on you. You can just decide to, if you are everyday income earner, you can just decide to take a little fraction from that daily income and save. Let's say, for example, you have like 500 um, naira in Nigerian currency, for example. You can just decide to take out of that 500 naira, you can save like 5 naira, 10 naira, depending on what you can forgo. 100 naira, then you make do, you manage with the remaining. Now, this savings will always be a backup for you, and it has really been very effective. Those who are in business, if they don't save, they will barely have enough to continue to run their business. So savings is very important for business and for individual use. Then my next tip is scale of preference. Scale of preference here is more or less setting priorities. Make your priorities right. Set your priorities right. Now, cut costs. You cut costs by carving out your scale of preference. If you draft that scale of preference, you will notice that you will not be spending unnecessarily. What is scale of preference? Scale of preference is a list of wants that is arranged in order of priority or importance. These needs are usually itemized starting from the most important needs, followed by the less pressing ones. Okay, so scale of preference is just like drawing a table of priorities of what you want to spend first or what you want to do first before the other. You notice that if you take your time to draw out your scale of preference, it will be difficult for you to just spend money unnecessarily. But if you don't have a scale of preference you have drawn for yourself, you will just end up spending everything you have without knowing, even on things that are unnecessary. So it is very important that you draft out your scale of preference. All right. I gave an example. I used John as an example. I said, John needs food, money for rent. He also needs clothes. He wants a car as well. He still has a car, but he needs another new one. His old car is in a good working condition. So now you can see these things are itemized. He needs food. He needs money for rent. He needs clothing. He needs a car, a new car. He already has one car, but he needs another one. Now, looking at these items, you see that food is one of those that makes our top scale of preference, our top priority, because we must eat. If you don't eat, you can't survive. If you don't eat, you can't run a business. If you don't eat, you cannot do anything. So you need food to survive. Now, we'll place food as our top priority. He also needs clothes, because the old clothes he has are already wearing out. So he needs to buy new ones. All right. So we also look at car. He has a car already. The car is fully in use, but he wants a new brand of car. Now, what will John do? And then he needs to draw out his scale of preference. The top, those ones that comes first, what are they? His scale of preference: food is number 1. Clothes is number 2. Okay? Then the next one will be his car. Are you seeing how he has finally drawn his scale of preference? So he knows what the money that his income that he's expecting. He knows, or he already has carved out a table on how he will spend the money. Food, clothing, and car. All right. Now, if his income is limited, and then he has spent money to buy food, and he has replaced his old clothing, the next one will be car. So the next question will be whether he can do without the car, because he already has a car and this car is in full function. But because he has a taste, he has a high taste for the new brand of car, he might just say, oh no, he's gonna put the car before any other thing. Once he starts doing that and it continues like that, he will always, especially if his income is not increasing, he continues to buy things based on his high taste and not what he really needs. You will discover that he will be having some financial breakdown. So scale of preference is very, very important. Itemizing these things: first food, after food you have clothing, after clothing then he needs a car. Now this car, are we to say that this car is his need or it is his want? No, it is not. Need and want. Need is something that you need to live. that is very necessary to live and function. Now he already has a car that is taking him around to anywhere he's going. So he can make do with that. So in this case, car is wants. It is what he wants. It is his taste, what he wants. But now he has limited resources. So he has to apportion it based on the order of priority. So car will be the last in the scale of preference or on the table of priorities. Okay? So in this case of John, his needs are food and clothes, while car is his wants. He desires a new car, but if he has limited resources, he can still continue to manage the old car, can continue to use the old car. By so doing, you'll see that he will save his money for something else or peradventure an emergency. So if he buys food, he buys clothing, and he still have money left to buy a new car, and even after buying the car, he still have some more money to save from that particular income, then he can just decide to buy the car. But if his income is limited, he will go only for those ones that are necessary for his daily living. Okay? Now let's look at his table of preference. He can just say number 1 of the priority is food, number 2 clothes, or number 3 car. Now this first set of priorities drawn out could be for when his income can cover all 3 and he will not be financially wrecked. Or he might just decide to buy just food and clothes and continue to use his old car. I'm just citing example of how scale of preference works. So you list out, you itemize those preferences or your priorities that are very important for your daily living, especially when your income is limited. Then since he has a car already, he can continue to make do with that car. And the car is good. He can continue to use it until such a time when he has income that can cover the expenses of the car or of buying the new car, and then it will not render him financially wrecked. So cutting costs and making more savings is very, very important. Scale of preference changes frequently as the need arises. So it is always good to list them out every other time. Then you strike out those desires, also called wants, that you can do without. At the end of the month, you will be surprised the amount of money you would have saved because of this scale of preference you have drawn out for yourself. For this scale of preference to be effective and deliberate, you should always list them out on a notebook. You are not just drawing your scale of preference in your head. No, you can either use a hard copy notebook or a digital notebook. Write out at every time, write out your scale of preference so that when your income comes, you will know what you are spending your money for. Okay? Then regularly open it. Open that book. It can even be a digital notebook. Go through it, update it, and remind yourself that you have already drawn a scale of preference. By so doing, you will not be spending money on things that are unnecessary or on things that are just wants, especially when your resources is limited. So it is one thing to itemize your scale of preference. It's another thing to stick to them judiciously. So it's important to frequently open your scale of preference or the book where you draw out your scale of preference. Okay? Go through it to remind yourself so that you will not spend more than you should. Carving out your scale of preference will prevent you from throwing money around or spending unnecessarily. And when you cut down on the unnecessary spending, you will realize that you are saving money more. So scale of preference kind of enhances savings. All right. So these are tips that are very useful. The next one I want to look at is budget. Budget. After itemizing your scale of preference, the next thing you should do is to allocate the money to be spent for each item. Now you have drawn out your priorities or your order of priorities or your scale of preference. Now you attach the money to be spent on each of these items. This is where the budget comes in. What is a budget? A budget is a plan you write down to decide how money will be spent daily, weekly, or monthly. All right? So let's take John's example again. John has written down his scale of preference or his order of priorities. He has itemized them. The next thing now is to attach money to each of them based on his income. Now let's say food, he wants to spend $600 for food in a particular week or a particular month based on his income. Then he spends clothes $400. You see that he has already budgeted what he wants to use his income for. So when you draw a budget, it will restrict the amount that you have to spend on a particular thing, and it will help you to save more. Okay? Sometimes you hear that countries draw out their budgets. To draw out a budget, it's not compulsory that it must be only for the country. Individuals should draw their budget. If you don't draw your budget, know how much you want to spend for a particular item, you are gonna spend more than you should. So you see how drawing budgets is very, very important to do. So you go back to that your notebook where you drew your scale of preference and attach the prices to each of those itemized priorities in your scale of preference. Attach the prices so that when you get your income or when you want to spend the money, you will know that for food, for example, I'm spending just $600 and nothing more. And I'm gonna use that and manage it. Okay? So just like you have to be deliberate to follow your listed scale of preference, you have to really stick to your budget if you must save. Write them down in the same notebook you listed your scale of preference. Then you check your budget frequently so that you can stay updated and you will not deviate from spending unnecessarily. You notice that even after drawing your budget out, you are saving more money. You are making savings. Right? So another tip that is very useful, very helpful is spot purchases. Spot purchases. What do I call spot purchases? Spot purchases are unplanned purchases that is made immediately based on an unusual circumstance or taking advantage of favorable market conditions that is existing at that particular time. What do I mean? Now I'm in the grocery shop and there is there is something I found in the grocery shop. I didn't plan to buy it, but because I saw that there's a promo on that particular item, I just decided to buy, take advantage of that promo. Or maybe I became so interested in a gown. I didn't plan to buy this particular gown, but because the gown is so beautiful, I just on the spot brought out money and I paid for it. That's what we call spot purchases. Yeah, most times spot purchases are good, especially when we want to take advantage of a favorable market condition, like a promo at a time. And we know that somehow at one point we might still need that thing for our daily living. But it is usually very difficult to completely stop it. On the spot buying is very difficult to just stop, because like I said, it can be favorable, it can be for our own good. Now I want to save more money. No, I saw a product, there's a promo attached to it. I want to get it because anyhow I will still get it tomorrow. So it has saved me a lot. But one thing you should bear in mind about spot purchases is that it should be reduced. It shouldn't be every time you are buying something on the spot, unplanned things. No, you should reduce it. There are even times you should not even buy it. Yeah, something is so flashy, you don't really need it, but because you are so interested in the way it looks, you just buy. By so doing, you are sinking your income. You are sinking your income. So even if you have to buy sometimes, which is very natural, you reduce it. Some other times, just avoid it completely. This will make you spend less, and then you will save more, and then you can live within your resources. So in this part one of how to survive economic hardship, we have discussed how important savings are, then drawing your scale of preference, very, very important. All these are practical, useful tips that has been helping me a lot. Then we'll talk about budget. Budget. We discussed budget. When you hear budget, some people, when they hear budget, they'll be like, is it budget for the country? No. Budget your income. Attach the price to whatever you want to buy in your scale of preference. Then we also talk about spot purchases. Yeah, spot purchases are good sometimes, especially when we want to take advantage of a prevalent favorable market condition. But we should try hard to reduce it. Sometimes we should just avoid it. And by so doing, we'll discover that we'll spend less and save more. And save more. And with this, you can easily live and manage your resources, or you live within the resources you have. So in my next video, we're gonna continue this discussion. I wish you all a nice day. Bye bye.